So, I have never read George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series. I've seen bits and pieces of the show, and through pop culture osmosis, I've come to know the major events and characters quite well. Only it turns out I didn't. Most of the characters in this book are quite different than the characters of the show. These characters that I thought that I knew. For one thing, they're all younger, uglier, and a lot better dressed. And that includes the White Walkers, which is probably a good place to start. The blue ice demons from the show are, well, I suppose I should give a spoiler warning. I'm going to be talking about characters and concepts across the entire series, not just book one, A Game of Thrones, but the White Walkers. The White Walkers, for starters, are referred to primarily as the others. The others. Yeah, I for one find that a much more terrifying name in its simplicity. It's so plain, it's so simple, it's and yet it strikes such fear. It's so evocative. It speaks to this otherworldly, abhorrent nature of these main antagonists of the entire series. Uh, these creatures who come out of the cold and dark, with flesh as white as milk, it is described, with these blazing blue eyes and the shifting armor of greens and blues and forest colors. It's sort of like a living thing that they wear, and they have these swords as sharp as razors, and so thin they seem to vanish if you look on them uh, straight on. It's very eerie, and we only see the walkers once at the beginning of the book, and they're not seen again for the entire book, which adds to this air of mystery, this building of horror that there are these creatures out there doing something, and no one really knows anything about it. Uh, I found it clever, really, that George R. R. Martin shows you this raw magic in the prologue, so that we're prepared for when things get weird later. Right? So you don't know in the first few chapters that there's going to be ice demons or magic. It just seems like a regular fantasy world, and a fairly low magic one at that. uh, which I think that's what makes the prologue so strong. Well, that and just the sheer majesty of these intelligent, mocking, cruel, malicious antagonists who seem only to be interested in spilling blood and wiping out the human race, right? Uh, which leads me to talk about, I think, one of the major differences between book and show, and that is the majesty and this extreme outlandishness of almost every character and every location. The scale of the castles is monstrous. The wall is 700 feet tall and miles long, and the people themselves stand out so much. You spend time with so many of these bonkers characters, most of whom you'll never see again. Uh, Knowing what I know about the future of the series, uh, I still couldn't really see the thin, pale-eyed Roose Bolton with his soft, whispery voice given any more attention than Lord Wyman Manderley of White Harbor, say, who is considered the heaviest guy in Westeros, backs it up with this outlandish charm. He's oh, look how gracious and magnanimous I am. I'm so generous and charming, and I'm your friend, to be sure. Don't look at the man behind the curtain. This guy strikes me as a really, standout character. And yet he's just one of many side characters. They're all so fascinating because everyone gets a story, a time to shine, be it these long chapters we get to spend with our dour hero Ned Stark, or the mere mention of Sir Flement Brax with his unicorn helmet. He wears a unicorn helmet. He has a big horn on his helmet, or for that matter, or Titus Blackwood, who shows up once in the entire story with a raven feather cloak and yellow scale armor, uh, and that stands out, right? That pops in the mind. You're not going to forget that guy, despite the fact that he only showed up for 5 minutes, and then he's gone, and you're left wondering about these various strange and wonderful characters. Uh, and uh, I'm not going to lie. Titus Blackwood might be my new favorite character. Am I over exaggerating? Maybe a little bit, but that's what this book is made for. Is for these crazy, wild characters who have their own stories going on. Ned's off in King's Landing playing the Game of Thrones, and I get the sense that Wyman Manderley in White Harbor is doing is having his own adventures, and Sir Flement Brax is fighting for the Lannisters, and who knows what he's getting up to. It must be something vaguely amusing. He wears a unicorn helmet, after all, uh, and I I guess it's just don't even get me started on the within plots that occur. Some that I didn't even know about. I really had no idea that, like the merchant prince Illyrio, who's this big guy with the forked yellow beard. I had no idea he was so crucial to the story going on in Essos, and it turns out he's cooking up something really special. He's scheming with Varys the spider, and Varys, who's a master of disguise in the books, and everyone thinks he's a magician. And I don't really know what they're up to yet, but I know Varys is not as chivalrous as he would have you believe, right? My impression is that you're always given an easy truth, that Varys is this misunderstood hero out for the good of the realm, that Ned is Jon Snow's father, and his mother was Shara Dane, Lady of Starfall, who, by the way, is another great character who I had no idea existed. Um, but then the story progresses, and things become more interesting and more convoluted, right? You begin to question the easy truths you're given. I don't think Lord Varys is interested in the well being of the common people, nor do I think Ned is Jon's father. I know, surprise, surprise. And, well, we all know the Lannisters killed Jon Arryn. I mean, we're basically told as much by our good, trustworthy friend Littlefinger, uh, who's both much more subtle in the books and quite a bit more creepy, actually. Yeah, Sansa, stay away from that one. Uh, which I guess I can use this as an opportunity to slip over and talk about the Lannisters. I mean, yeah, Tyrion is a lot different. A bit more spiteful than I was expecting, more bitter about his situation. Uh, he looks a lot different. He has these mismatched eyes of different colors, and his hair is lank and pale, and his face is described as being very short and small and squat. Uh, Also, we did a backflip, which has no bearing on anything. I just wanted to mention it. He does a backflip. He like flips like off a wall, lands on his hands, and does some weird acrobatics, which he'll never do again. But it's still interesting, isn't it? Uh, his brother, on the other hand, okay, so Jamie is pretty much as I knew him from the show, from pop culture. Uh, I just noticed that when he does his big thing, the big thing in this book, when he pushes Bran Stark out a window, uh, it's much more complicated than I expected because Bran catches Cersei and Jamie, brother and sister, you know, and he freaks out and slips and falls, and Jamie runs to the window and catches him. Uh, I'm a few books ahead by now, and this I think is the first sign of Jamie's instinct to do the right thing. He sees a boy falling and he catches him, right? He saves the boy first. His first instinct is to do good. And only after he thinks about it, only after he realizes that this is a witness to their affair, does he do the wrong thing and push the small child out a window. uh, which becomes its own attempted murder mystery. After a fashion, an assassin gets sent to kill Bran, an assassin with a Valyrian steel dagger, which points right back to the Lannisters. And at first, we're led to believe that it's Cersei or Jaime trying to keep Bran from talking. Only then we're told by the extremely trustworthy Littlefinger that it was Tyrion. Only we get chapters from Tyrion's point of view, so we know he didn't send the assassin. Uh, Look, the general consensus in the later books is that Joffrey sent the assassin. The mean little piece of crap that Joffrey is. Uh, and I get it. I think it was Joffrey too. I don't necessarily like that it was Joffrey. I think it's just weird judging by the evidence we're given. I don't think any options work perfectly, and which is why I believe that it was Joffrey. I think I would have liked it better if it had been Varys or Littlefinger trying to stir up trouble between the Starks and Lannisters. I think that would have been more rewarding. But I really do think it was Joffrey. So, yeah. I guess that's the great thing, though, is that there's so much in this book. It's so dense that George R. R. Martin is really able to keep the reader on their toes, to keep us guessing. You're always trying to second guess every question, every line of dialogue, trying to find something, some new fascinating piece of intel that'll make everything come together. Or, you're not. It's perfectly fine, I guess, to read this book as if you were Ned Stark, just rolling with the punches, trying to solve what you can, and then seeing what happens next. Uh, and that is perfectly fine and a perfectly fun way of reading the book. Uh, but for those who want to really dig into there's a lot there to keep you busy. I know it kept me busy, questioning and second guessing every theory, and everything that is presented to me. And I think eventually you're going to get characters who act that way too, who are consistently paranoid and really pick apart every situation. In a way, George R. R. Martin's trying to teach us to approach his books in that way. Uh, and I know there's a lot to be said for the symbolism, right? And for the incredible abundance of these wacky, wonderful characters who come and go and come again. Uh, I'm telling you, there's no way I could have predicted. If I were just reading this book for the first time and had absolutely no knowledge, there's no way I could have predicted that Roose Bolton was going to become any more an important character than Wyman Manderley or Great John Umber. Uh, but it turns out he does. And I guess that's the fun part, is because the signs are there. They talk about how Roose is more dangerous than he lets on, and how people should be wary of him. And yet it comes as a surprise when he starts doing stuff later. Uh, and yeah, that's just a wonderful aspect of it. But I wanted to leave you with an interesting observation I've made. I know I'm not the first person to realize this, but I still think it's neat. It really blew my mind when I figured it out, and it really enlightened me to how much George was willing to think about his own work. So we're told the story of this battle at the Tower of Joy, where Mr. Neddard Stark, rides up and does battle with some of the knights of the old Kingsguard. And so we have Arthur Dane, the Sword of the Morning, the greatest knight who ever lived, and we have Sir Gerald Hightower, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, who is known as the White Bull. He's just this great warrior. And we have Sir Oswell Wint, who was a member of House Wint. I know, shocking. Who wear a bat as their symbol. Uh, and they throw down with Ned and with seven other dudes. Seven other dudes. It was Ned and six other guys actually, in defense of the Tower of Joy. Only Ned and the tiny little Cranogman Howland Reed survive. So those three dudes almost managed to take on a group of guys uh, over twice their size, uh, which is a symbol to how awesome they were, right? Uh, and elsewhere in the book, we are shown a battle at the Wall, and yeah, I think it's really cool that when Sir Alistair Thorne decides to pick on the new recruit, Samuel Tarley, uh, John rushes to his aid. The man, the myth, the legend, the 14-year-old Jon Snow. He's 14 years old in the book. Isn't that funny? Uh, John runs to Sam's defense, and he's joined by his friend Grin, who is likened to an oryx, which is like a sort of like a bull, sort of like the White Bull, Gerald Hightower. And he's joined by Pip, who is described as having big ears like a bat like the bat of House Wint, Oswell Wint. In this situation, these three recruits to the Night's Watch are serving as like symbols of the three fallen Kingsguard. Now, I don't think John is in any way related to Sir Arthur Dane, but I do think it's sort of meant to show how John is going to be a great hero. He's going to make these hard choices, and he's going to perform these amazing feats of bravery, just like Sir Arthur. Yeah, and I think that's really cool. Uh, I don't really care what George is trying to tell us there. Uh, it's just a feat of amazing symbolism that he's able to draw those connections between characters. Uh, and as for the books as a whole, I had an amazing time with it. There's so much to say, but I figured that less is more, and there's still a whole lot of books left. Let me tell you, I thought A Game of Thrones was wild. It was amazing, and I enjoyed every minute of it. But I had no idea what I was getting into with A Clash of Kings. More on that later.